Welcome to our presentation today. Today we're going to be learning how to install memory. Within that, we're also going to learn what types of memory you can use and kind of just some general guidelines on when you want to actually install memory. Before we start, we're going to have a little bit of an icebreaker. So the icebreaker is, what are some games you liked as a kid?
Pac-Man. Frogger.
Donkey Kong.
Ty likes Donkey Kong. Good job, Ty.
Centipede.
Centipede.
Treacherous.
Treacherous.
How you
Tetris.
say it?
Tetris.
I've never heard of treacherous, Tammy. Maybe that's what the icy roads will do for us later. Anybody? Galaga? Galaga was always one of my favorites. Love Galaga. Okay, so moving right along. What are some reasons that we might want to add memory to our PC? Ty.
If we want to do more multitasking, more things at once.
Tammy.
Downloading.
Downloading. Anybody?
You don't want. You may not want to have to go out and buy another laptop or PC, and if you add memory to your existing, maybe that kind of keeps you from having to spend more money.
Longer lifespan.
Using the PC more than just more for entertainment, more for movies and videos and so forth.
More entertainment. Okay. All good reasons. So, anybody ever felt like this when their computer slows down a little bit?
All the time. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let me tell you, it's much easier to actually upgrade it than to replace the whole thing after you pound it with a hammer. So, I wouldn't pound it with a hammer or your fist. Sometimes that can hurt. So, these are some of the different types of memory we're going to look at here. The one here at the top, that's going to be a desktop memory module. This one in the middle is more than likely going to be for a server. As you can see, it's just a little bit bigger. These are scaled about the same size. The one here on the bottom is actually going to be for a laptop computer. We're not going to install a laptop. We're going to use a desktop today for this example. But this is about what a laptop memory module would look like. So, some of the memory considerations when you're going to install memory, when you're going to add memory to your desktop or laptop, you want to see if there's actually open slots. In this case, we've got one open slot that we're going to install a stick of memory in here in just a moment. How much can I install? Well, that kind of goes back to the open slot question. There are also limitations to how much memory some computers can use. In this case, we're going to just install one memory because we have one slot. Some computers have more slots. You can install more memory, they can handle more memory. Servers, for example, usually you can install quite a bit of memory. Getting the right type of memory. This is very important since if you get the wrong type, your computer may not boot up or it won't recognize that you actually installed new memory. Some of the types that you can get, it depends on speed. You kind of want to match what speed is already in your computer. You can usually do that by either pulling some memory that's out. Sometimes the speed will actually be on the memory, or you can check the specs. If you, let's say, for example, this is a gateway. You go up to the gateway website, type in the model number, and it'll tell you the speed of the memory. You just want to match the speed if you can. If you get faster memory, it's not gonna run faster. It's gonna run at the slower memory speed. Number of pins. This is very important. For example, this is a 200 pin stick of memory. The newer modules are 204 pin. I think there's a 192 pin for even older computers, but in this case we're using a 200 pin. A 204 pin module will not work in this computer. You have to have a 200 pin module. So that's important to find out also by the spec sheets how many pins your memory has. Correct speed. Memory comes in different megahertz speed wise. You have 1600, 1333, 1866, different speeds, different. Higher the number, the faster it is. However, if you have a 1600 megahertz memory module and you install an 1866 memory module, it's going to run at the 1600. So the 1800 megahertz would actually cost more. In a case like this, stick with what you already have in there, unless you're going to replace every memory stick in your computer. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and install the memory. This is actually very easy. It's not anything to be afraid of. So a couple things you can do. I've already taken the memory. I've already taken the side case off of this, and I've actually already blown this out. But one thing you might want to do before you do this is blow out the computer just a little bit to get some of that extra dust out of here. Don't do it indoors. I would probably go outside and do it. If not, you're going to have dust all in your house, depending on how long it's been since you've done that. Another thing you might want to use, you don't have to use it, is an anti-static strap. If you're standing on carpet and you get a little bit of static in you and you touch the motherboard, you could short the whole thing out, in which case it becomes much more expensive than actually just installing memory. So in this case, we're going to use a strap. There's two things you can do. You can use a strap, or you can touch the side, the metal side of the casing, ground yourself out. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and use the strap. Just unwind it. These things are very cheap. They're a couple of bucks. I would recommend, if you've never done this before, just go ahead and use it. So it goes around the wrist. Pull it. Take the little pin, and you just connect it to a piece of the metal on the side of the computer. In this case, there's a piece of metal right there. We're going to put it over there. So we're going to tilt the computer up on its end. As you can see, this is very easy. So one thing it's going to be hard to see, but there's a little notch. The notch goes in one way and one way only. So if you don't install it correctly, you're going to know, because it's not going to go in. So here's our one open slot. So you just slide in the little groove here at the bottom and at the top. And when you push it in, it's going to click. And you want to have 2 clicks, one at each end. So there's 2 clicks. Just give it a little bit of a pull. It's stuck. Very, very simple and easy to do. Even a novice can do that. But the important thing is, don't ground out your motherboard, so use your anti-static strap. So, do we have any questions? Ty?
Yeah, Mark, I'm debating whether to upgrade my old PC or buy a new PC. I'm trying to figure out what the memory requirements are. If I want to do just typical office productivity, or if I want to do high gaming. Can you kind of tell me what the memory requirements are for each of those?
That's a great question, Ty. In just an everyday use computer, you can probably get by. Newer computers that are sold these days come in probably about 8 gigabyte. Some of them come with 16, 8 gigabyte. For a normal standard use every day, check my internet, look at email, a few pictures, 8 gigabytes should be plenty. If you're going to use some gaming, you can get by with 8 gigabytes. 16 gigabytes is probably better, depending on how intensive the game is. I would probably, in a gaming situation, I would probably go with 16.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, good question. Anybody else? Tammy?
I have 2. So after you install the memory, do you have to do anything when you boot up?
No. The only thing you need to worry about when you do boot up, and we didn't go through that here, but is know how much memory is in your PC to begin with. Let's say, for example, you had 4 gig. When it boots up, different models are going to have different ways to show you. You can usually check it inside Windows if you're using Windows, but in this case, some computers will tell you when you boot up how much memory is in your computer. So if you had 4 to begin with, you added memory and you still have 4, something's wrong. Either the memory's not compatible, and in some cases such as that, the computer won't actually boot up. It'll beep and it won't do anything. I've seen it where you can install it and it just doesn't register, which is still the same problem. Really, but if you just do a little bit of pre-work before you buy it, and if you have questions, you can call your manufacturer, or you can go into a store such as Fry's or Best Buy and they can usually also help you find what kind of memory will work.
And the other question is, will I notice the speed difference with additional RAM?
That depends. It's not going to be it's not going to double the speed of your computer. What it can do is if your operating system is using, let's say you have 2 gigs of memory, if your operating system is using that full 2 gigs of memory, which is somewhat uncommon, but it'll get pretty close to that. If you add another 2 gigs and it frees up that memory, it will increase your speed a little bit. Your computer won't bog down quite as much, let's say when you're opening programs, because it's going to the memory instead of going to your hard drive. So you will notice a little bit of speed difference. It's not going to be a brand new computer, but it will get you maybe a year or 2 use out of an older computer. Stephanie.
Yeah, I had a question about when you buy it. Do you have to have a specific brand? Will your computer call for a specific brand of memory? Do you have to use their memory, for example?
Not necessarily. Some computer makers do rebrand memory. They'll get a name brand such as a Corsair, and they'll just put their name on it, which is fine. However, you can just buy directly from a company like Newegg, Best Buy, Fry's. But the biggest thing to look for is make sure it has a good warranty. The other things we talked about, make sure the pins are correct, make sure the memory speeds are correct, and then I would buy, if it was me, I would buy a highly rated memory. Depending on, there's a balance between price and reliability. So you want to make sure that, there's a good sweet spot there of, I'm buying an $80 4-star piece of memory instead of the $150 5-star memory. So memory's fairly reliable. It doesn't have any moving parts. Your moving parts pieces are going to be worse in terms of reliability. But memory, it's either going to work or it doesn't. Anybody else? I want to thank you guys for coming today. Just in summation, make sure that you get the right speed memory, the right number of pins for your memory, and for you newbies, I would use an anti-static strap if you can. So if you don't have any other questions, I want to thank you for your time and hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.